You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, nutrition, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere, anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your hosts, Dr. Justin Marchegiani and Barris Harvey, as they answer your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Welcome to another awesome episode of Beyond Wellness Radio. Before we go into today's show, I want to tell you guys about the newsletter. Go to beyondwellnessradio.com and hit the big button that says sign up. There's a newsletter sign up that you guys can stay in contact with us, and it allows you to get each episode every week straight into your inbox. So we've been growing, and we really appreciate you guys jumping on the list, and it really helps us grow our show and get the message out. Want to view more? Make sure to hit that top button where it says Justin Health. This will take you directly to Dr. Justin's page where you can see a bunch of info and contact him directly. He's still taking 15-minute free consultations. So make sure if you have any more questions that you go straight there. We also have a place that you can add your questions so that way we can answer them on the show just for you. So again, beyondwellnessradio.com, and there's big button that says newsletter. Go ahead and sign up. So how's it going today, Dr. Justin?
Barris, it's going great, man. Very, very good day here. How about yourself?
Oh, it's going good. It's really, really sunny outside this morning. It seems like, this is going to be a very good Friday. So
awesome.
First off,
I'm actually heading down to a functional medicine conference this weekend, too, down in Houston. So looking forward to, always improving and growing and trying to bring more to the patients.
Definitely. That sounds good. I'm always the same. Like, you always want to get super, super real good in your craft. So that's what you want to hear your trainer, practitioner, doctor is doing. Constantly learning, because there's so much new information every day, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, what do you have for breakfast this morning?
Today, man, it's just because Fridays when we do this podcast, I just do my butter and MCT in the coffee, a little bit of collagen. Mm-hmm. Although I did pull out a grass-fed ribeye that I will be having for dinner. So dinner will be some grass-fed ribeye, and we'll do some nice organic vegetable mix, maybe like a spring medley or something like that. Of course, with some butter and a lot of sea salt.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I went ahead and had myself some smoked sausage with eggs, and then I had a fresh avocado from my grandpa's tree. So, I don't know how more local you can get than that. So I know that it didn't travel long distance. It's probably organic. I know he wasn't spraying stuff on it. He just let it be. And, man, I could eat like a half avocado as long as you just throw some lime and salt on top. It's basically just like guacamole straight on your plate. So yeah, that tasted amazing. And then what I cooked for dinner, now this is great. You just throw a big old pot roast, sear it, for 5 minutes on each side because you got to get it brown, has to taste good too. Then you throw it in the crock pot over a bed of some onions and cook up some red curry sauce, and then let that marinate, cook in the crock pot for 8 hours. Yeah, you'll have a nice looking stew.
That's awesome, man. Love it.
Definitely. So in today's podcast, we wanted to talk about our immune system. We mentioned previously that we would dive in, and because it's so in depth. You're about to jump in, Justin?
Yeah, that sounds good. So we talk about our immune system. We kind of talked about it last time in regards to vitamin D. So if anyone missed that podcast, check it out. But if you missed it, here's kind of the Reader's Digest summary. Vitamin D helps with our T regulatory cells. And our T regulatory cells help balance our Th1 and Th2 immune system branches. So imagine Th1 is like our cytotoxic immune system. This is like the special forces of our immune system. This is the Navy SEALs, this is the Delta Force, this is the Green Berets, this is the Army Rangers. These are the people you send in there first when our defense system has been broken. When a virus or bacteria or some type of critter crosses enemy lines, these are the people we send in first. So this is our Th1 immune response. We have our Th2 immune response, which is more of our humoral or our antibody-based immune system. These are like the infantry that wait way behind to get word back from the special forces whether it's safe to go in, whether it's ready to go in. Now, in real life, it takes about 7 days or so for our humoral or our antibody immune system to kind of get geared up and start attacking. So a lot of people notice like that 1 week window is kind of the period when they're sick a lot of times, and they start feeling better after a week. And that's because that Th2 or our infantry type of immune response is now gearing up and really coming to the battlefield. Now, when we deal with Th2, these is kind of the part of the immune system that we're trying to boost up with a vaccination, right? So if you get a vaccination, you're going to try to boost up this branch of the immune system. Now, I'm not a big fan of vaccinations in general because of the other adjuvants and additives and other compounds in the vaccination that actually can suppress your immune system. And not to mention, there's been some research that vaccinations, by boosting up the Th2 response really high or artificially, it can actually lower your Th1 immune response. And this is really important because you want to have a strong special forces, so when you first get exposed to a critter, you don't even want to get sick. You don't even want to be down for 24 or 48 hours. You want to just feel that sniffle or feel a little scratch in your throat, and you want to be able to boost that Th1 and get over that and squash those bacteria or viruses or critters really fast. So I'm going to give you a second to kind of ask some questions and break it down a little, Barris.
Yeah, definitely. So it's almost like you got the Th1, Th2, and I'm assuming that Th1 is like that first bomb, that first attack, and so if you get sick, let's say you get really sick, it's basically when you get a bunch of those critters, you got the Th1 goes, explodes them up, but there's still a lot of critters coming in, so you're like, hey, we need some backup. And then that's when you get the ongoing. But if you have a really strong Th1 or you don't have a lot of critters coming in, you bomb them, explode them the first day, and you don't even notice that you got sick, or you might, like you mentioned, just have a little sniffle. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah, so you
definitely
have like your CD8. These are like your natural killer cells. This is like the sniper of like the Navy SEAL, right? This is like the guy coming in there first, really clearing out the battlefield. We have our CD8 and CD4. Our CD4 are like our helper cells. So they're kind of like radioing back to everyone and just letting everyone know what's going on, while the CD8s are the ones that are really out there first and foremost, really trying to do what they got to do to help out and communicate what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And a lot of times...
I'm just writing the notes as you speak.
Yeah. So a lot of times here, for instance, with low vitamin D, or we'll even see it with estrogen dominance, for instance, we start to have this decrease in the CD8 to CD4 ratio. So ideally, we should have twice the amount of CD8 to CD4. So it's kind of like a good rule of thumb. And a lot of people, the CD8's dropping while the CD4 is increasing. So we're kind of decreasing that ratio. So we want like more special forces. We want more snipers. We want more guys out in front of the situation than the CD4s and overall the infantry. That's how we get over colds and infections super fast.
Yeah, definitely. We want those more, basically we want more frontline guys, right?
Exactly.
We want to make sure we prevent having to fight them on our own terrain. Let's try to get them in this middle ground as fast as possible.
And vitamin D kind of plays in there because vitamin D helps balance out that Th1 to Th2, which is great. And it also helps with the Th17 system, which helps balance and modulate the immune system as well. And vitamin D also increases this antimicrobial peptide called cathelicidin, which is great because it has antibacterial activity. So if we get bacteria coming on board there, it can definitely help eradicate it.
Yeah, definitely. So we mentioned just some of the physiology that's going on. Let's just, before we kind of jump into the next step, what would make someone get sick generally? I know it could be a million things, but generally, like what's happening with someone with a weaker immune system, and what can we say is a stronger immune system? What prevents us from getting sick?
Well, let's just look at stress. And I don't like the word stress by itself because it's very abstract, right?
Yeah.
So stress in general creates a response. So this could be emotional stress, just, work, family, friends, finances, whatever else is going on in your life. It could be emotional stress, physical stress, right? Working out too hard. It could be underlying chemical stressors like an infection or you eating too much sugar. All of these things are going to create stress. And one of the stress hormones we create is a glucocorticoid called cortisol. And cortisol is known, you can just go Google in the literature, type in glucocorticoid or cortisol and type in inhibition of Th1 immune response. And you'll find lots of studies that excessive cortisol or stress hormones will actually decrease our Th1 immune system. Now this is important because that means we're decreasing the special forces. So simple things like getting enough sleep, simple things like avoiding excess of sugar, simple things like doing a meditation. Those are all going to help with stress, and they're going to modulate cortisol for the better and help with our immune system. Any questions there, Barris? Do you want to break it down at all?
Yeah, so you mentioned cortisol and that being our stress hormone. And so basically we have to remember, and you broke down like how stress, it's not just mental emotional stress, but anything that's causing this cortisol increase, this fight or flight response, whether that be acute or chronic, is decreasing or inhibiting our production of Th1. So what's going on here is your body has two choices. Either saying, hey, we got to attack this thing, we got to run from this line, we have to do this because we need to survive now, and we're not too worried about fighting those long-term infections, at least right now, because my cortisol is so high. And what's happening is if we have that constant stress, we are constantly doing that and just focusing on the next kind of 2 minutes, almost like if someone's poor, they might not be thinking about their future and why it's important to save up or do all these things that we say we should do, but no, they need their focus on the right now, which can, in a chronic state, be very dangerous.
Exactly. So what we see today with a lot of the over-vaccination is we see this hyper Th2 dominance. And what characterizes this hyper Th2 dominance? We see lots of allergies, asthma, right? We see lots of eczema, more autoimmune conditions. And this is characteristic of an increase in Th2 response. And also with toxicity, we're depleting our body of a lot of our master antioxidants, one being glutathione. So when we decrease glutathione, that can help basically shift us more to a Th2 response. So it's important, right? Glutathione is made from protein, sulfur-based amino acids, cysteine, glutamine, glycine. This is what's making glutathione. And if we're just stressed out by getting exposed to toxins, or we're just stressed in our life, or we're just not getting enough of these nutrients in there, low glutathione will shift our immune system more to the Th2 side of the fence. Toxins as well. I mean, you can go out there and Google mercury and Th2 dominance. You'll find higher levels of mercury correlating with Th2 dominance. You'll also see it with certain minerals like zinc. Zinc is really important. There's this compound called zinc fingers. There's this like epigenetic trigger that zinc has on our body and our immune system. And zinc can beneficially affect our immune system. So does selenium. So these are important micronutrients that if we're low in because of, let's say, leaky gut and malabsorption issues, that can definitely skew our immune system away from a beneficial Th1 to Th2 ratio.
And you mentioned that we can possibly be low in these nutrients. You suggest testing so that way you can kind of get an idea of what are you low in and trying to get, kind of what's causing this? Or is there, or it's like common causes, like if you had low zinc, there's a possibility of X, Y, and Z happening behind stage. Like where would somebody go from here?
Well, like for simple nutrients like zinc, we can easily do a zinc tally test, which is like a liquid zinc sulfate that you just take a shot of it. And the better the zinc tastes in your mouth, the faster and the better it tastes, the more deficient you are. The faster and worse it tastes, the less deficient you are. So essentially your body creates this sense of palatability, if you will. The better it tastes, meaning the more you need it, the less or the worse it tastes, and the faster it tastes bad, the less you need it. So the zinc tally test is a really good test. It's been around for a while, and it's even in the scientific literature as being accurate. So that's a really good way to look at zinc. You can even look at zinc levels on blood tests, looking at alkaline phosphatase. If you see alkaline phosphatase on your basic CBC below 50, that's a good marker that you're low in zinc. Also, if you have poor digestion or poor stomach acid issues, you need zinc to make stomach acid, and you need stomach acid to break down zinc. So this is one of these awesome nutrients where if we have gut issues, we're almost guaranteed to have a zinc deficiency. So just go out and get a zinc tally test, get some zinc chloride. I think zinc sulfate. A couple companies carry it. Designs for Health carries one. Metagenics carries one. If you need one, you can always call my office. It's a really easy test, and it's very affordable to make sure you're getting enough zinc.
Yeah, that seems like a really, really good idea. And like you said, doesn't sound like a super duper expensive thing to do either.
No.
So that's good.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so now we talked a little bit about some nutrients, but before I go into the next state, which would be kind of like feeling symptoms and how to deflect it, we talked about zinc, we talked about a little bit about selenium, vitamin D. What are some other key players in terms of our body, not necessarily what we can do supplementally, but just what are some key players and regulators when it comes to our immune system?
So key players regarding supplements or herbs?
Not necessarily herbs, but just like nutrients or kind of what's going on in our body, like what hormones are possibly affecting it, what nutrients. We talked about zinc, we talked about vitamin D, but also what are kind of things going on that we know in our body are kind of regulating things. And then after we'll kind of get to like what we can do supplementally wise.
Well, again, progesterone is one of those things that's going to help with a healthy Th1 response, as well as healthy or balanced levels of cortisol, right? Not too low, because typically low levels of cortisol indicate chronic stress and HPA axis dysfunction. So low levels of cortisol aren't going to be good because it's typically a sign of depletion and or HPA axis or brain dysfunction. And high levels of cortisol are also going to throw that off. So just when we start becoming more estrogen dominant as a female, or we start becoming more cortisol depleted or cortisol stimulated, that's going to really decrease our Th1 response. Also vitamin D deficiency, like I already mentioned, and some of these key nutrients, glutathione, vitamin D, selenium, zinc, these are going to be some of the key nutrients off the bat. Now, the next step is, let's say you're starting to get sick. Like, what are some really good things you can do? Well, we know off the bat, our immune system creates these macrophages, right? These macrophages start to engulf a lot of the bacteria and the viruses. And what they do is when they engulf them, they have this what's called an antigen presenting cell, where they go back and they're presenting the antigen to the immune system. And this is where the Th2 part really comes in and starts stimulating antibodies. But the goal is if we can have really strong macrophages, we can really gobble up and kind of sequester and isolate a lot of these critters from gaining a foothold. So certain things can be very helpful. Like vitamin C, for instance, I did a video on this where the vitamin C will actually go into the cell, and the concentrations of vitamin D get very, very, back up. The concentrations of vitamin C is in cat, get very, very high in that macrophage, and the body uses that as a means to attack and engulf the virus or bacteria. So here's the interesting thing. If we're sucking vitamin C into that macrophage to engulf that bacteria, it's called phagocytosis, we're engulfing it. If we're sucking vitamin C in, well, the vitamin C molecule looks very, very similar to glucose. So if we're eating too much sugar, our body will suck in glucose along with vitamin C, and the glucose will crowd out vitamin C. It'll crowd out the receptors for vitamin C in that macrophage, and it will prevent the vitamin C from being able to do its job and have an antioxidant effect and kill the bacteria. So if we can cut out the glucose and we can get vitamin C maybe even up to 7 or 8 grams a day, that's going to significantly help our macrophages and this whole process known as phagocytosis to really work. So if we up our vitamin D and if we up our vitamin C, that's going to allow all these critters to really be gobbled up by these macrophages.
Basically, that means don't down a bunch of orange juice when you're getting sick and saying, oh, well, vitamin C, because you might not have that right balance of glucose to vitamin C.
Exactly. And there's been a lot of research. I posted one in an article I did last year by the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in the 70s, talking about, what did they say? It was 100 grams of glucose inhibited the immune system by 50% for 5 hours.
Yeah.
And it took up much longer for it to actually come back to normal. And they compared like a glucose solution versus starch. The starch even decreased a little bit, but it was far more with the actual glucose drink. So let's correlate this to like high fructose corn syrup, because fructose is even more damaging because glucose can be taken up by the muscle primarily, where fructose goes to the liver. So I hypothesize, I haven't done a peer-reviewed research search on this. I could do it now as we talk, but I guarantee you if you're going to look at fructose and immune function, you're going to see significantly more damage or inhibition of the immune system with fructose. And that's what's going to be in all of our soft drinks, which are being consumed at record levels today.
Yeah. So basically, it's better to eat the orange, and probably better if, you throw an orange in a smoothie than to just drink orange juice.
Exactly.
Because at least you're getting a better balance, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so definitely. So vitamin C, a major role, and I think even a lot of people, even the mainstream, know about this. Sometimes it's just the route of consumption needs to be a little bit better.
What you just said regarding sugar not being the way to go and consuming real sugar. We want to consume actual real foods because you get the fiber in there, you get the pectin, and you get a whole bunch of nutrients. And typically, like for instance, in orange, you're going to get a whole bunch of vitamin C as well, where you're not going to get any of that nutrition when you're eating refined sugar.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some other things? What are some herbs that you might take if you got sick?
So some of the things that I'm going to do off the bat if I get sick is, one, I'm going to hit vitamin C up very high, up to 8 or 9 grams a day. And don't be afraid. If you hit or max out your vitamin D, you'll get loose stools. You'll get diarrhea. So if you go too high in the vitamin C, not that big of a deal. And a lot of times people say, well, you should get your vitamin C up to maximum potency so you do get diarrhea, so you know that you're flooding it. And I typically use a vitamin C that's an ester C. So it's got a lot of the extra nutrients and bioflavonoids along with the ascorbic acid. It tends to work a little better.
Yeah, and just a word. You ever tasted an ester C versus just a by itself? It usually tastes a little bit better too. Some. I mean, some of them will put flavoring, but if you want like the really good ones where you can put a lot of vitamin C in your system, like when you're really sick, yeah, you just got to make sure the source sometimes, because sometimes it can taste pretty gross.
Yeah, and like vitamin C is going to be helpful, like I said, with the macrophages, and just a good ester C is going to be helpful. Now, we can also do herbs, right? I'm a really big fan of astragalus. Astragalus helps with the Th1 immune response. It also helps with your body pumping out antibodies. So we kind of talked about antibodies as being like part of the Th2 system, right? It's the antibodies, the late stage antibodies, typically the IgG, but the astragalus will also help with the IgM. And these are the antibodies that come onto the scene really, really fast. So the IgM really gets stimulated. The IgA will get stimulated. This is like our protective mucosal barrier that lines our gut and our nose and stuff. So it's very helpful to have protection in the nose and all those mucous membranes. And if we do that with some reishi mushroom, reishi is awesome because it has a lot of these compounds called triterpenes. And these triterpenes are really powerful at actually deactivating viruses. So very good. So if you're getting viruses in there, you can take reishi, up to 3 to 4 grams per day, spread out over the course of a day. And you can take astragalus along with it. And it's very potent at stimulating the Th1 branch, also deactivating viruses. And it's also very supportive to the immune system. A lot of these things have been around for thousands of years. You wouldn't know it based on conventional medicine's inadequacy of sharing it or putting it out there. I mean, you go to the ER, like the only thing maybe you'll get talked about is maybe Tamiflu, which, decreases the symptoms of the flu, I think, maybe a day or a day and a half. But again, the question is, are you really making your immune system stronger? Because just because you decrease the symptoms, you may get sick again. You may relapse right after that because you're not actually strengthening the immune system. So,
yeah, and I know it probably sounds real hippie, but like these plants have been around for a very long time. They seem, pretty resistant. I mean, a lot of them were here, even when the dinosaurs were here, and they're still surviving. So if they can survive, maybe they have some good lessons to teach our bodies, right? Like, uh, and it's funny too because the only kind of, like, especially when you hear mushrooms, like the only thing that we've been publicized that people think of, psilocybin mushrooms, but then also those are like so demonized, like, oh, they'll make you hallucinate and go crazy, which you probably don't go crazy, and which is probably just a potent medicine. But there's all these other medicines too that just do different functions that might not make you hallucinate, but might give you more body reduced pains or boost your immune system the same way, something like we have other herbs that, I guess, for example, I mean, over here it's medically legal, but we know that cannabis is good for the immune system and it helps, different components, mostly the CBD, which is legal if you get industrial hemp everywhere. And so we see like those beneficial nutrients in herbs, but it's not just those super powerful illegal ones. There are also ones that are illegal that we just don't necessarily see them right in front of our face just because, we're not getting high or hallucinating off this reishi. There's so many other powerful things that you can find in these mushrooms. And like you mentioned, they've been here for a while, but a lot of people don't even know about them.
Exactly. And then we have, other sides of the spectrum where essentially cancer, right? We have our autoimmune condition, which is our Th2 immune system being overreactive and attacking self. And then we have the other side where our immune system goes to sleep and it can't control apoptosis, which is basically our cells are born and then they're killed or recycled. So think of apoptosis as your body's ability to recycle cells. So if cells start going out of control, imagine you don't bring the recycle bin out for a couple of weeks to the front, curve. Well, your recycle bin's going to be overflowing. Well, it's the same thing with our immune system. If it goes to sleep, it's not going to be able to recycle a lot of these cells. And when cells haven't been recycled for a while, we call that a tumor. So, like, for instance, here's one study, and a lot of these studies, it really kind of pisses me off because a lot of these studies are in Asian cultures or they're in cultures outside of the U.S., but this study was called Astragalus saponins affects proliferation and invasion of apoptosis of gastric cancer. So they were looking at astragalus as a means to support the immune system for cancer prevention. And what they found was astragalus inhibited human gastric cancer cell growth, decreased the invasion ability, and induced apoptosis. They said at the end, in the conclusion, astragalus as an alternative treatment option or perhaps using it as an adjuvant chemotherapeutic agent in gastric cancer therapy. They suggested possibility in further developing this for that reason. So this is great, but you're just not going to hear of any of these things in the U.S. And you just got to know that it's out there. It's in the literature. And just because your doctor doesn't know about it doesn't mean it's not there and doesn't mean you can't utilize it to help you.
Yeah. I mean, you got to remember that it's not his fault. He's not going to be shown that. I mean, why would someone go to him and say, hey, look, you should really recommend this supplement? Because what he's taught and what's pushed on him is going to be from different companies saying, hey, look, this is what is the new thing. This is what you need to be showing your patients. And if you don't, then, we're probably going to have a problem, right?
Exactly. And we got to just know that the major journals like JAMA, New England Journal of Medicine, right? These journals, look, just go get one. Go into a hospital and look at the lounge. I used to work in a hospital for years in surgery. And just pick up one of these journals because the doctors don't have time to really read the small journals. They're going to be reading the big major journals. And if you look every 4 or 5 pages, you're going to see a drug ad in the journal. And the drug companies have a major effect at choosing what gets into these studies. So you're going to see it in more obscure journals. A lot of this information, you're not going to see it really in the big mainstream journals. It's just not going to get there. And your mainstream doctor is just only going to be skimming through the abstracts of these mainstream journals in these, when they have just a few minutes of time. So they're not going to get access to this great info.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we talked about some things we could do. Reishi mushrooms, astragalus, these powerful herbs. Also mentioned vitamin C. What are some of the symptoms, or what are some of the things that we do? Because of course, like sneezing or doing something that's kind of obvious. But are there any things that we might notice like quickly that can kind of tell us, something's off. Maybe I should boost this before I really get sick. Like we wake up in the morning, we might have a scratchy throat and ignore it. Like what should we do like right then?
So the first thing, as soon as you start getting a little bit headache, a little bit achy, slight bit of a scratchy throat, slight bit of a runny nose, you want to pound these herbs. I mean, my go-to would be to up vitamin C. I would even up vitamin D up to 1,000 IUs per pound of body weight. I'll say that again, 1,000 IUs per 1 pound of body weight. So if I'm 200 pounds, yes, that's 200,000 units for 3 days. Don't do it for kids. Don't do it for anyone breastfeeding. But this is going to be where you want to be at to get your vitamin D maximized, because that's going to have a upregulating effect on getting your immune system regulated. They've done it in Europe with these protocols for a while. They've even done studies where they give in vitamin D intravenously for tuberculosis patients, and it's had an amazing effect at upregulating the immune system. So I would do vitamin D at that super high level for 3 days. I would up the vitamin C, and I'd come back down afterwards to a reasonable amount, maybe 10,000 a day. But I would do vitamin C up to bowel tolerance. I would hit the reishi up for anywhere between 3 to 5 grams per day. I would increase the astragalus, and then I'd also take silver. Now, not all silver is created equal. I recommend reading Gordon Peterson, PhD. He's an immunologist who wrote a book on silver. If you just Google him on Amazon, he's got a great book out there. But he's created a product called Silver Psyllin or Silver Sol. It's a 10 part per million silver. It's very pure, so you're not going to develop blue skin or gray skin by drinking it. A lot of people out there always ask me that on the internet. They're like, hey, how about silver? Your skin's going to turn blue. Again, it's all dependent upon quality, right? The grass-fed ribeye I'm having tonight isn't the same quality as the meat at McDonald's. So we got to kind of look at things in that same perspective. So silver, right. A teaspoon, anywhere between 5-6 times a day spread out is going to be very helpful, because the silver is going to bind to these viruses and bind to these proteins and essentially destroy them. And it's very, very safe on the body, and the body excretes it, 99% of it within 24 hours. Gone.
Mm-mm.
So that would be my stack right there. Silver, vitamin C, astragalus, and reishi mushroom. And if you wanted to go a little bit more crazy on there, you could add some echinacea. Echinacea and golden seal work phenomenal. That would be a really good stack to add. And you can also add some vitamin A. Higher dose vitamin A. Jonathan Wright will add up to, I want to say 100,000 units. Again, don't do it if you're pregnant. But 100,000 units of micellized or sublingual liposomal vitamin A is very good. Combining it with vitamin D works phenomenal as a way of boosting up your immune system.
Definitely. Are there any practices that you might do? Meditate, sauna, sleep extra? What are some of the activities that you might do, or how might you change your environment?
Okay, so we talked about cortisol and how it affects the Th1. So meditation will be helpful, definitely, because that's going to help modulate cortisol for the better, right? Cortisol is better balanced. We're going to have a better immune response. That's one right there. A sauna can be very helpful. Remember, our immune system is very heat sensitive. So our body will heat up just a little bit because a lot of the bacteria that tend to cause sickness, they're mesophilic, meaning they survive at medium temperatures, right around body temperature, 98, 99 degrees. So the response the body does is it wants to increase temperature just a bit so it can actually kill the bacteria. Kind of like if you had water in a stream and you wanted to clean it out, you may boil it for a period of time to kind of clean it out. That's kind of the same mindset here with what we're doing with the immune system. And, I've done research on this too, that you don't really have to worry too much about febrile seizure or seizure from having a body temperature too high. The immune system won't go over 105 degrees for the most part. So 104, 105, I'd even say is safe for your immune system. I mean, again, a lot of parents get really concerned and they want to give their kid a Tylenol or a ibuprofen, which is like a pyrogenic. It helps decrease fever. But in my opinion, the body is doing something that's really important. So if the fever is,
Yes.
105 or less, I think let the body burn out the bacteria. It's doing that to kill it. It's mobilizing calcium. It's creating this immune response. It's essentially boiling the water up so we can kill a lot of this bacteria. So I know it's hard for most parents and most people to get a little scared because of, brain damage and these febrile seizures, but there's a good body of research out there that if you're not going to go over 105, and it's very rare to go over 105, 99% of fevers don't go over that, so you're going to be pretty okay.
Yeah, so basically just be mindful and check the temperature. If it's getting to 106, 107, then maybe you can go ahead and maybe use it. Oh, had a timer on. I was just thinking, I was like, oh, we probably won't go over that. So basically, that's a really good way to say it is when you said it's almost like you're just kind of boiling off the water, right? You're just trying to kill the extra bacteria. I've noticed that with myself. I if I get a fever, I will let the fever do its job because I know, hey, it's killing the certain bacteria. Same way when you cook, like you're cooking to kill bacteria for the most part. Also, food generally tastes better that way, but it's usually to kill off a certain amount of bacteria. And then so saunas, they're going to get you, not only do we have certain, like you mentioned, immune responses to heat, and we have these heat shock proteins, but also we have to remember that if we can get our body, we can be in a sauna and get in the temperature that's pretty high, and people go in a sauna every day after a gym, having a fever is probably not going to be that bad, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of in recap here, we have a lot of nutrients and a lot of them can affect both sides of the immune system, which is great. And the goal is we want to have a stronger immune system. We want to do things on the lifestyle side that support it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Supplements are great, but if you're eating a whole bunch of sugar and getting stressed out, not getting sleep, I mean, you're wasting your money. Your best bet is to really hammer home the lifestyle stuff, which is sleep, especially before 10 p.m., minimize glucose and sugar. Bone broths can be excellent. Even a little bit of fasting while sick can also be helpful. Mm-hmm. Maximizing nutrient density, right? Zinc is going to be really helpful. And then once you got everything else dialed in, then adding in some of these herbs, picking 2 or 3 of these herbs or even 4 or 5, depending on, let's say you got to get up the next day and you got to be at work or you got an event and you can't afford to be sick. Well, I recommend having your medicine cabinet of 3 to 5 things there on tap. And as soon as you feel the slight bit of sickness, that can make a difference of you being sick or not feeling well for a few hours or a few days. So if you jump on it fast, that's going to be huge. So my stack, again, is I have silver, I have astragalus, I have vitamin C, I have vitamin D, and I have reishi. That's my stack. My 5 things that are in my medicine cabinet at all times. And I will hit those things hard, and they make a huge difference. And that's why I'm almost never sick. And it's great because when you're flying and you're doing all these things, people are so paranoid about getting sick, and I know my immune system will be able to handle it. And also, if you know you're going into stressful situations, right? You're going to be around a whole bunch of sickies. It's the holidays. You may be eating a little bit more sugar, or maybe you're around some family that will be stressing you out. Take a low dose of some of these herbs. Have a 1 to 2 gram dose of vitamin C going on in the background. Have a little bit of reishi or astragalus going on in the background, so it's there. So your immune system's kind of like already primed, and all you have to do is up the dose or dial in the lifestyle support more when you start feeling just a little bit under the weather.
Yeah, if you have the ability, or maybe yet, I mean, nobody wants to be sick on the weekends, but if you are, take that time to sleep in and let your body do its thing, right? Because when you're resting, that's when all that repair is happening. And like you mentioned too, if you're going to be eating a certain way, if you're fasting, or at least when you do get your meals, maybe you're taking shakes or just like slamming down some broth and green drinks, or something like that, making sure that you're maximizing nutrient density. So when your body's, doing its job and make sure that it maximizes how much nutrients it's bringing in to help support, but at the same time not having to work so hard, burning up a bunch of calories that it doesn't necessarily need to be there, right?
Exactly.
So I think those are some of the good recaps and kind of letting your body do its job, because I know the conventional way is we feel these symptoms and they're uncomfortable, right? I mean, working out's uncomfortable, but it's good for us. But we feel this, oh, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to feel it. We take these medicines that suppress those symptoms, but now we kind of stretch that out. It's like you're kind of weakening your your own body's army. So you're like saying, hey, I'm only gonna, because I don't like the fighting that's going on. I don't like feeling the heat from the guns. We can only have, we have to split it 50%, right? And you have to reduce. So the war takes longer. You're kind of stretching it out. So now you're sick for 7 days or 10 days, like you said, where your TH2 has to come in and help out. Whereas if you're doing the right things, you kick that bad boy out as fast as possible. You let your body do its job, and maybe it's uncomfortable, but hey, if I get a fever, I'm having a fever for one night or two, and it's gone. I don't have to have a mild fever for a week and a half.
Exactly, and most people don't have access to any of this information, and when they feel sick, they just feel like an innocent victim, like there's a germ just floating around out there and it got them, and rats, and they're down for the count, and there's nothing they can do. Just know that there's so much you can do, and this is really empowering to have these little tools and tips at your disposal, because it can really make the difference of, adding more vacation days because you're not tapping into those sick days.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so sounds good. Is there anything else that you wanted to specifically add in?
I would say check out my blog on why you get sick. I have a 2-part series on, what supplements I recommend, exact doses. Take a look at that. I kind of break it down. Part 1's more on the lifestyle side of things, lifestyle and diet. Part 2's on the supplements. We'll put that in the show notes so people can go and refer to that as well. Just try it. Pick 2 or 3 things on the list that sound good to you and just give it a try and see how you do.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great resource, and you put a lot of work into creating that information, because there's a lot of references there, right there. So, yeah, I mean, we kind of went over the whole gamut here, where we went over the importance of the lifestyle, managing stress, of course, making sure we're eating the right foods, and even fasting. I mean, and then of course, basic things, like make sure people are, washing your hands.
Yeah,
and
of course,
staying
like washing
clean,
the hands. Those are your simple ones, and don't use the Purell hand sanitizer. The main ingredient is propylene glycol, aka antifreeze. That's going to not help your immune system, right? You wouldn't wash your hands with antifreeze, right? But because it says Purell on there, you think it's okay. Use an essential oil, use something more natural that's not going to be a stress on your body. Don't use the Purell. Take a look at the back, the next one you have. You're going to see propylene glycol. Type that into the Google machine. That's antifreeze. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. I think what's the company? I think EO.
Yeah, EO. They have a great lavender and a lemon one.
Yeah,
I
right.
use both of those. They have a spray. That's a better way to do it. I keep that in my bag. If I'm on a flight, I'll just spray that on my hands and just wash that. And also, a lot of the soaps, they have tricycline in it, and they have other antibiotics, which, again, not going to be good for your immune system in general if you're always being exposed to it. So, good soaps. Ideally, coconut-based soaps tend to be good because of the lauric acid that's in coconut that's antimicrobial. It's natural. Mm-hmm. And essential oils like the EO ones are a really good one to wash your hands or just sanitize your hands with.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that sounds good. I think we covered a lot of the basics, making sure that people are eating right, what to do right after, and what's kind of the physiology happening behind that. If anybody has more questions, though, I do urge you to go to beyondwellnessradio.com/question, and you can go ahead and add your question right there. So if it's about the specific episode or about anything else, we can go ahead and answer that either directly for you, or if we feel that is a great question for the entire audience to know, we'll go ahead and answer that on the show. So again, that's beyondwellnessradio.com/question. Anything else, Dr. Dustin?
That's it, Barrett. Sounds good to me, man.
All right, you have a good one. We'll see you guys next week.
Take care.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to beyondwellnessradio.com/question. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.